Andrew Basagio went around to the front of Sean Kastner while two other officers each had a hold of his arms behind him, and Andrew Basagio delivered 2 knee strikes.
There's blood everywhere. My knee spike busted his face open.
Okay.
Well, I got blood on me. I need something to clean my hands with. All right. I tased him several times.
Taking his knee and putting it in Sean Kastner's face, resulting in trauma to Mr. Kastner's face. He was then tased 7 times in his living room.
To knee spike somebody in the face, it has to reach a level where you feel that your life is in danger. Obviously, that was not at that point. The video is troubling.
Shocked. Absolutely shocked.
It's crazy what's happening with the Kissimmee, Florida Police Department. Here's how things started for their newest police chief in May of 2023, Betty Holland.
The Kissimmee Police Department has announced Holland as their new police chief. Holland says her top priorities include strengthening community relationships and training.
It's my responsibility to ensure they grow and they become the best person they can be.
And here's how things are going now.
In the last 2 hours, the city of Kissimmee announced it has accepted the resignation of Chief Betty Holland after another Kissimmee police officer was indicted by a grand jury his use of force on a man during an arrest.
Betty Holland has resigned as chief of police after taking over that role in May of 2023.
So body cam footage from this one incident has now led to the resignation of the Kissimmee police chief Betty Holland, along with 10 other officers who are also under investigation.
Some officers who are still employed with the Kissimmee Police Department were either not forthcoming or outright lied during interviews and testimony before the grand jury.
You are allowed to resist an unlawful arrest. So if somebody's unlawfully in your house, like this particular instance where law enforcement was unlawfully in your home, you're allowed to lawfully resist them without violence, which is what happens.
At a press conference, Florida State Attorney Andrew Bain announced the findings of a grand jury in indictment of Kissimmee police officer Andrew Basagio.
The grand jury found the Kissimmee Police Department harbored a culture of silence or a culture of covering up misconduct.
Where officer misconduct is not only not reported, but accepted.
To our community, I want you to know that we are committing to restoring and earning your trust daily.
Shocked. Absolutely shocked.
You know, all these things that they found, it's nothing unusual. Stuff like this happens across the country. What's unusual here is the way this has been handled. They are actually cleaning up the situation. I'll show you the body cam footage that triggered all this. It would basically just be a routine video that I cover here on my channel.
So it's one lie, and then you try to cover it up with another lie, and then it just mushrooms into something that we never intended it to be. And that's kind of what happens in the department sometimes. And unfortunately, this is what happened here.
But first, you know how I love these promotional videos that police departments put out. I found this one that the Kissimmee Police Department did a few years ago, so I did them the favor of sprucing it up just a little bit and updating it. Check it out.
What we're looking for when we recruit an officer to the Kissimmee Police Department is, our integrity, our honor. That is the cornerstone of what we do in law enforcement.
We promote teamwork.
We value dignity.
We strive to do everything that we can to serve the community and do it in the right way.
It's very important for us to shed a positive light to let the public know that we're still humans and we are all in this together.
Everything centers around building relationships in our organization. So that's not only inside the building, but our dealings with the community.
And Jesse, in the last 2 hours, the city of Kissimmee announced it has accepted the resignation of Chief Betty Holland. This decision comes after the state attorney's office sent the city a letter raising concerns about her credibility and the credibility of others within the department. After another Kissimmee police officer was indicted by a grand jury his use of force on a man during an arrest.
The police chief and deputy chief resigned. Other officers are on administrative leave. 11 are targeted for investigations.
The issues the grand jury and the state attorney's office identified are deeply troubling.
Raising deep concerns as to the issues about systematic practices within the Kissimmee Police Department.
Body-worn camera footage showed the involved officers laughing about the incident.
I get out of my car, I talk to people. I feel like community involvement is probably one of the top things every agency should be thinking about. You need to know who you're serving. They need to understand where you're coming from.
Well, if you could sum up the grand jury's take on the Kissimmee Police Department, you could say it's a mess for a number of reasons, including lack of integrity for some staff members, lack of training, and scariest of all, a code of silence that allegedly allowed Officer Andrew Passaggio to basically get away with beating a man.
When we say family, we really mean family. We treat each other like that. We want everybody to feel like they are welcomed, like they're included.
I will give you the same challenge I give to anybody in our community.
The grand jury found this culture of non-reporting extended to Passaggio's punishment, which was limited to a single day off without pay, and labeled merely as a, quote, failure to obey policies, thus avoiding mandatory reporting to the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission, the agency responsible for maintaining ethical standards in law enforcement.
Come give the Kissimmee Police Department a chance, and you'll see what's in our heart. Come visit us, come ride along with our officers. I promise you'll want to be a member of our organization.
Today we are here to share the grand jury's findings and recommendations for the use of force involving Kissimmee police officer Andrew Passaggio.
During a press conference last week, Florida State Attorney Andrew Bain announced the findings of the grand jury following this misconduct investigation and indictment of Kissimmee police officer Andrew Passaggio. This investigation came after Officer Passaggio was accused of attacking a man inside his home while other police officers allegedly covered it up in August of 2024.
In August, the Oslo County grand jury indicted Officer Passaggio on 6 charges, one of them being felony battery, 2 counts of tampering with a witness, official misconduct, solicitation of perjury, and misdemeanor battery. These charges stem from an incident that happened in 2023, and when a 911 call resulted in Officer Passaggio's knee spiking a man in the face, causing serious injury.
The body cam footage shows a struggle between Sean Kastner and his father outside their home.
No, get out and shut the door. No, I'm not coming out.
Officers then entered the residence.
No, get out and shut the door.
But then the video cuts to black. And what happens next inside that home prompted this prosecutor's office to open a use of force investigation, and that was in April of 2023, just 1 month after the new police chief came into Kissimmee.
I didn't threaten anybody's life. I didn't want to hurt myself. I'm not going to Park Place.
He is okay.
This is harassment.
Facial injuries.
I'll calm down. You can't baker after me because I'm not suicidal against myself. I didn't threaten anybody's life, and I'm asking you nicely, can you take the cuffs off? I didn't do anything. You can't have me in cuffs right now because I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't fight you. I didn't know. He tried to make it look like I pushed him. He's trying to get me in trouble.
One officer on the scene described the incident saying, "We went hands-on to arrest him, and he's sweaty. He has no shirt on. We got him pinned against the couch right there. He kept fighting, so I gave him a couple of knee spikes to the face. Good ones. Split his face open. He got blood everywhere."
Multiple uses of force? Okay. My knee spike, there's blood everywhere. My knee spike busted his face open.
Okay.
Well, I got blood on me. I need something to clean my hands with. All right. Okay. I tased him several times.
The officer added that he used a taser on Kastner, who was later arrested with visible injuries, including blood on his face and something lodged in his back. The incident triggered an internal investigation into honesty within that police department. On October 21st, State Attorney Andrew Bain's office sent a letter to Kissimmee leadership requesting a formal investigation into allegations of untruthfulness and misconduct by some members of the police department, and it also follows an Osceola County grand jury's findings and recommendations. In the letter, Bain's office said the investigation initially focused on the 2023 use of force case involving Officer Passaggio, who responded to a disturbance and entered a home without a warrant and violated the department's use of force policy to take a man into custody. The grand jury found that the Kissimmee Police Department fosters a culture of silence, where officer misconduct is not only not reported, but it's accepted.
The grand jury found the Kissimmee Police Department harbored a culture of silence or a culture of covering up misconduct.
Evidence and testimony that was presented to the grand jury showed that the officers failed to report Baseggio's excessive use of force, which went on for several minutes without intervention from the two other officers on the scene, and the body cam showed the other officers on the scene laughing about the incident.
The grand jury found that the Kissimmee Police Department fosters a culture of silence where officer misconduct is not only not reported, but accepted. Evidence and testimony presented to the grand jury showed officers failed to report Baseggio's excessive use of force, which went on for several minutes without intervention from two other officers who was on the scene. Body-worn camera footage showed the involved officers laughing about the incident and intentionally avoiding discussing it on their body-worn camera.
I get out of my car, I talk to people. I feel like community involvement is probably one of the top things every agency should be thinking about. You need to know who you're serving. They need to understand where you're coming from.
Statements made by other officers at the scene suggest that officers were aware that the use of force that night was excessive, and still they did nothing.
When we say family, we really mean family. We treat each other like that. We want everybody to feel like they are welcome, like they're included.
The grand jury found this culture of non-reporting extended to Baseggio's punishment, which was limited to a single day off without pay, and labeled merely as a, quote, failure to obey policies, thus avoiding mandatory reporting to the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission, the agency responsible for maintaining ethical standards in law enforcement. The grand jury went on to say it lacks confidence in the Kissimmee Police Department's command staff and has requested the city conduct a thorough evaluation of that group.
Everything centers around building relationships in our organization. So that's not only inside the building, but our dealings with the community.
The grand jury found that despite clear evidence of misconduct in Officer Baseggio's use of force incident, that former Chief Holland chose not to criminally investigate the incident initially and failed to report Baseggio's department policy violations to the appropriate agencies, including the Office of the State Attorney.
Well, I mean, Chief Holland did say that it was her top priority, or one of her top priorities, to take care of the police officers under her command so that they too could one day be the chief of police of the Kissimmee Police Department.
Holland says her top priorities include strengthening community relationships and training. She says the most rewarding part will be being able to help those in need and help members of the agency grow.
It's my responsibility to ensure they grow and they become, the best person they can be. And so I think that will be more impactful for me to see, them grow and maybe one day be chief.
The investigation was compromised from the very beginning because Officer Baseggio was able to have access to knowing the investigation was going on, and then began to tamper with other witnesses along that during that time. So then we went back in and re-interviewed a lot of those witnesses that were inside of that investigation, and it turned out that many of the things that they stated were falsified.
In fact, the state attorney's office only learned about Baseggio's unlawful use of force after watching a news report on TV, after which we repeatedly requested the Kissimmee Police Department request a criminal investigation into the matter. The grand jury determined that when the Kissimmee Police Department finally relented and authorized the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to conduct an investigation, that investigation was compromised from the very start.
What we're looking for when we recruit an officer to the Kissimmee Police Department is, our integrity, our honor. That is the cornerstone of what we do in law enforcement.
Not only did Chief Holland notify Baseggio about the criminal investigation, but he was also shown the final report before prosecutors reviewed it, allowing him to tamper with witnesses.
When asked by the media why the prosecutors thought that police officers would actually lie to cover up the misconduct by one of their colleagues, they really had no idea. I mean, it's just shocking. This has never happened before, has it?
Sean Wiggins, Assistant State Attorney. There's no indication on why they all chose to make the decisions that they made through the course of this investigation, but our investigation consistently came across individuals who were listed in that letter that took actions that we felt warranted notifying the department of their conduct through the course of the investigation.
The grand jury's investigation also highlighted broader issues in the department regarding training deficiencies. Although designated as, quote, critical incident trained, none of the officers on scene in the Bisagio use of force matter recognized the victim was experiencing a mental health crisis. Additionally, officers entering the victim's home were unaware that this warrantless entry violated clear legal standards. The grand jury found that this demonstrates an insufficient understanding of search and seizure laws, and they are calling for enhanced training for all KPD officers in crisis management, search and seizure, and proper investigative procedures. Bisagio's conduct was initially reviewed by a corporal who approved it despite clear wrongdoing. The grand jury concluded that the Kissimmee Police Department also repeatedly failed to comply with Florida law that requires it to report policy violations to the Criminal Justice Standards and Training Commission.
Come give the Kissimmee Police Department a chance, and you'll see what's in our heart.
The grand jury found approximately 10 instances where sustained policy violations went unreported to the commission and spanned multiple chiefs' administrations. The grand jury discovered a pattern of labeling excessive force incidents as mere policy failures rather than specifying actual misconduct, suggesting possible intent to avoid the mandatory reporting. Reminder that this reporting allows the commission to ensure that law enforcement officers who are disciplined, resign, or are terminated by one agency cannot simply get a job with another agency without the second agency knowing of the wrongdoing. Finally, the grand jury believes the integrity of the Kissimmee Police Department is further undermined by instances of dishonesty during the investigation into Bisagio's use of force. The grand jury found clear evidence indicating that some officers who are still employed with the Kissimmee Police Department were either not forthcoming or outright lied during interviews and testimony before the grand jury, raising serious concerns with the grand jury about the department's credibility.
You know, it's part of the psychology of group thinking, and then you try to, say it's one lie, and then you try to cover it up with another lie, and then it just mushrooms into something that we never intended it to be, and that's kind of what happens in the department sometimes. And unfortunately, this is what happened here. Well, then you have situations where people are being arrested for things that they may not have been arrested, should have been arrested for. People's rights could be violated, like what happened in this particular case. There are a lot of things that could happen in the course of an investigation or in the course of a case that can cause serious problems for multiple people, including the public.
The incident involving Bisagio and everything that sort of sprung from that obviously began in April of 2023. What you'll see discussed in the grand jury presentment is through the state attorney's investigation, an audit of past initial or IAs or internal affairs investigations was conducted, and then brought to our attention that reports that should have been submitted to the commission that sort of tracks officer misconduct were never submitted. We know that those reports date back to at least the prior administration that was in charge of the Kissimmee Police Department.
As many times I've spoken to you all, my administration is not going to turn a blind eye to anyone, whether they are police officers, politicians, regular people in the public, rich, poor, it doesn't matter. Whatever ethnic or religious background, we're not turning a blind eye to wrongdoing in our community.
There was a report of a disturbance, and when Officer Bisagio arrived on scene, and this is all captured on body-worn camera, There were articles of clothing and other items throughout the driveway. At one point, Officer Basagio actually tells one of his other officers that there's a chance they need to do some sort of mental health check. So they did not take action on his mental health crisis, even though there's evidence that they were aware that one was going on. And then at least one of them proceeded to use excessive force while the other two watched. Mr. Kastner refused to come out of his home, which at that point he had a right to do, and the officers followed him into the home without a warrant, and that's where the use of force occurred. Andrew Basagio went around to the front of Sean Kastner while two other officers, one each, had a hold of his arms behind him, and Andrew Basagio delivered 2 knee strikes, taking his knee and putting it in Sean Kastner's face, resulting in trauma to Mr. Kastner's face. He was then tased 7 times in his living room. Mr. Kastner was resisting under the law and under KPD policy, but his level of resistance did not come close to warranting the force that was used.
So I want to get this correct for the law, for legal purposes. You are allowed to resist an unlawful arrest. So if somebody's unlawfully in your house, like this particular instance where law enforcement was unlawfully in your home, you're allowed to lawfully resist them without violence, which is what happened. So everything that Mr. Kastner did on that night, at that point, was legal underneath the law. And them being inside of his house, putting hands on him, was the problem.
Next, the city of Kissimmee responded. City manager Mike Steigerwald and the new interim police chief, Ann Zoito, responded to the grand jury findings last week.
Interim Chief Anzueto has been tasked with performing an extensive and comprehensive review of the department with a primary focus on the following areas. First, leadership. He'll be evaluating the command staff knowledge, experience, and skill set to ensure a trustworthy and competent law enforcement professionals lead this department. I want to take this opportunity to reaffirm the City of Kissimmee's commitment to addressing these issues transparently and thoroughly. We recognize the need for change, and today's release of the presentment and the announcement of actions we are already implementing marks a crucial step in that process. The actions that we've taken are not just a response to past failures, but a clear path forward towards restoring trust within our community, and we thank the grand jury for their hard work and their recommendations.
The issues the grand jury identified are deeply troubling, showing errors in former Chief Holland's decision-making, Steigerwald said. It's my responsibility to provide our community with a seasoned leader to make the changes necessary to correct deficiencies and restore the department's image. Perhaps they just need a new hype video. I'd be happy to help them with that. Or they could just use the one I just did.
I've already tasked my staff to implement refresher training on all sworn on crisis management, search and seizure, and investigative procedures. Furthermore, I've already made changes on day 1 to revamp our internal affairs section. Every decision we make and every step we take forward must be grounded in our promise to serve Kissimmee with honesty and professionalism. To our community, I want you to know that we are committing to restoring and earning your trust daily. Together, we can build a department that truly reflects the best of this community and serves as an example of excellence in law enforcement. It's troubling. The video is troubling, but this is day 2 for me. Let me digest everything and implement whatever changes are necessary.
Shocked. Absolutely shocked.
Are knee spikes within department policy?
We'll go to you and then we'll go back to you.
Policy?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Are knee spikes within department policy? Because I know it happened twice, plus 7 taser cycles.
Yes, knee spikes are a part of our use of force or response to resistance continuum, but to knee spike somebody in the face, there has to be, it has to reach a level where you feel that your life is in danger. And obviously that was not at that point. Do we have some that might not be doing the right things? We're going to learn that in the investigation from the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
He said that resources with Orange County Sheriff's Office will lead an inquiry into the 11 officers named in the grand jury report, who are alleged to be liars, basically, and who are still at the department with a badge and a gun and might pull you over at any moment and then lie about it. My goals are clear: to equip officers with the resources and training to perform duties safely and effectively, to set and uphold high standards of conduct. Let me help you. Just fire the 11 officers who lied. The grand jury clearly thought that the citizens needed to know who these officers were who were involved in the investigation and mentioned in the report in order to protect themselves and also to hold their government accountable. I have the report. I will post it at the blog post on this, linked in the first pinned comment below, so you can read the entire report yourself. It's 35 pages long. It does mention who the police officer witnesses were who were subpoenaed before the grand jury. Anyways, the report has all the names. You can review the report yourself if you have any interaction whatsoever with the Kissimmee Police Department, either now, in the future, or in the past. The craziest thing is that this is, like I said, it could be any one of my videos or any other video on the internet. I mean, these things happen all the time, and it is so common for law enforcement to circle the wagons and to protect their colleagues, the thin blue line, than it is to engage in any actual meaningful search for the truth or enforcement of civil rights. Now, why did this occur here? Was it for political reasons because there's an election happening right now and this particular prosecutor is up for re-election? I don't know. And I don't really care because this is exactly what should be happening across the country. This is real accountability. It's not perfect, but look what happened. I mean, they're not even done cleaning house. And this didn't require the feds to step in. This was prosecutors in that jurisdiction hauling everybody before a grand jury, and not to cover it up, but to actually search for the truth and deliver accountability.
Well, we should care. I mean, you should care about the quality of the people that are there to protect and serve you. And so that's the whole thing about what we should be looking forward in any public servant, is that are they there to do the job, and they're doing it with integrity, accountability, and are they being transparent about what's going on? And when something does go wrong, because look, things are going to go wrong. Are you going to step up and be the person that's going to say, hey, this is wrong, we're going to do something about it, we're going to change what's going on, we're going to identify this thing, and we have to make sure that that's what we're going to do as a community, and especially in the law enforcement community.
I think this is great what's happened, but there's still more work to do because there's at least 11 that are still there. There's more house to be cleaned, and you can help with that by sharing this footage. Keep the pressure on and send a message to law enforcement agencies elsewhere that this is what's coming. Either do it yourself or one way or the other, we're going to do it for you. Let me know in the comments, how do you like Kissimmee's new video that I helped them with? Also subscribe both here and at the blog at thecivilrightslawyer.com because I'll continue definitely to follow this one. Follow me on Twitter at JohnBryanESQ, also called The Civil Rights Lawyer there. Our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.
Come give the Kissimmee Police Department a chance, and you'll see what's in our heart.